Whenever I get gloomy with the state of the world, I think about the arrivals gate at Heathrow Airport. General opinions starting to make out that we live in a world of hatred and greed, but I don't see that. It seems to me that love is everywhere. Often it is not particularly dignified or newsworthy, but it's always there. Fathers and sons, mothers and daughters, husbands and wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, old friends. When the planes hit the Twin Towers, as far as I know, none of the phone calls from the people on board were messages of hate or revenge. They were all messages of love. If you look for it, I've got a sneaking suspicion love actually is all around. Welcome to Casa de Confidence, a podcast for you. You'll hear some incredible women
and some awesome, cool dudes
going confidently in the direction of their dreams and living in the purpose of their heart.
You're our host,
Julie DeLucca-Collins, and you are our sidekick. # handsome hot husband.
That again.
And the producer of the show.
That I am.
I am an author, speaker, coach, dreamer, and most of all,
we help people go in the direction of their dreams
and support them on their purpose. So pull up a chair,
grab a drink,
and make yourself at home because our casa
is your casa. Welcome back, or welcome to Casa de Confidence. I'm Dan. This is Julie. And Julie, is that your favorite movie of all time?
It's on the top 3.
The quote at the beginning was from, in case you guys,
didn't know,
Love Actually.
I thought that would be very apropos today for a couple of reasons. Number one, because today's guest interviewed me about my love of the movie Love Actually.
Oh, now I understand.
Now you understand.
I guess I didn't. Did he interview you in this interview or on his own podcast?
No, on his own podcast. Because, listen, there is always a method to my madness.
Well, yeah.
What?
Okay. I guess I believe that.
You believe that? Anyhow.
So this is the Brian that interviewed you on his podcast. That's cool.
I've been on his podcast twice.
Mm.
I was in the special Christmas edition talking about, so he has a podcast about your favorite movie. And
wait, what's my favorite movie?
What is your favorite movie, Dan?
My favorite movie is probably The Princess Bride.
I knew that. I was going to say that.
Well, what were you about to say? What did you think my favorite movie was?
I knew that was your favorite movie.
It's one of my favorite movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a big one on favorites though.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of the best movies ever made.
So
along with Toxic Avenger and
wow.
Yeah, you've never seen that,
No,
I'm sure.
Seen that. You are correct.
That's actually a very goofy movie.
So I have to say, I really enjoyed meeting Brian. We randomly met on Facebook. He was asking for people who love movies for his podcast. He was asking to interview people. And I said, hey, I would like to talk about the movies that I love. And we did. So it was a really fun experience. He really is. And his podcast, by the way, is called My Movie Story. You should check it out. It's on, they've covered over 100 movies on the podcast. And he has such incredible support. And he's looking to have more adventures and where they unpack different movies. And again, we need to talk about movies sometimes because there have been some great movies overall.
Oh, I hope so. We've been doing them for like 100-something years.
Mm-hmm.
I hope we had a few good ones.
Yes, we've had.
So what is your, you just said top 3. What's your number 1 movie? Because I know you love favorites.
I love what?
Favorites and ranking things.
I do. Okay, so my favorite movie is Shining Through.
Shining
which
Through.
Brian had never seen. And what he does is you tell him what your favorite movies are, and then he goes and watches them, and then you can unpack them together. So, and guess what? He did a cute little video, and he's ranking the movies, and Shining Through, he gave a 90% on that.
Really?
He loved it, so it was good. So I'm really, really
So
excited
you
that he
actually
featured it.
do have good taste?
I have excellent taste.
I know you chose me.
Not a lot. No, oh my God. Not a lot of people know about Shining Through, which is a great movie.
That's true. Who's in it? Who stars?
It is Melanie Griffith and what is his name? The president guy.
The president guy?
Michael
Douglas?
I had to think about that.
Yeah. Very cool.
So anyway, speaking of presidents, we're not going to speak about that today.
Yeah.
It's
So keep,
it's a difficult time. And I just want to say that love is all around, and we need to look for the love all around us, no matter where we are.
Yep.
So anyhow, what's going on with you, Daniel?
What's going on? Well, yesterday I went to my family's Christmas in July celebration because ever since COVID, we've been getting together in the summer instead of in the winter
You
when
are
everyone's
correct.
sick. So
that's right.
So we did that yesterday. Julie wasn't able to make it because she was meeting with one of her business partners, putting together the event that is coming in October to
the
Hartford,
event
Connecticut.
of the season. And if you are listening to this podcast before October 5th, 2024, you need to make your way to Connecticut because we are going to have an empowering all-day event exclusively designed for women entrepreneurs and some cool dudes that they want to come.
What's it called?
It is called Building a Boss Summit. And if anybody wants to elevate their business, expand their network, or gain valuable insights from industry leaders, this is the place to be. So Hillary Gatsby, who is my partner and co-producer in this event, flew here from California, and we made the rounds. We had a walkthrough with the venue, and then we were also meeting with some of the speakers in person, and then we worked at getting additional sponsors and just working through the blueprint of the entire event.
Yeah, and you got to meet with these people. That was great in person. That's the thing. It's one thing to be able to speak to people on the phone or Zoom or whatever, but meeting in person is a whole different thing. You really get to know a person.
Yeah, and one of the things that we really feel strongly about is that we are going to give back. October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So the summit will partner with ETT Women's Foundation, and we will give part of the ticket sales to that organization because we want to give back.
Awesome. That's important.
Yeah. And Hillary, again, she's a master connector. She's someone that I align incredibly. We have so many things in common when it comes to connecting people. She has lived in so many different places. She's lived in Paris and London. She's in LA now. She was a competitive skier, downhill skier.
She did Super G. That's impressed. That impressed me. I was like, I've always loved watching those types of sports, winter sports and summer sports during the Olympics. And the Olympics are coming up. And my whole life, I've always watched that stuff. Yeah. And it always impresses me how these athletes do what they do.
Well, looking to the future, she was named one of the women to watch. And no, hold on. She was named Woman to Watch in 2024 by Icon magazine, which I thought was pretty fantastic and cool. Awesome. And we have, the speakers and the caliber of our speakers is incredible. We have some superstar here from Hartford, but we also have Jessica Swig, Danielle McGrath, Vanessa Copes, and Maria Von Loesch going to be here. Marcy Hopkins. Again, names that you will recognize if you're in the personal development world. So excited to have, and I'll be hosting people in Hartford. # Hartford has it.
Hartford does have it.
Am I keeping you up, Daniel Collins?
I'm sorry. I just had a yawn there. Had to come out.
It had to come out. There you go.
Yeah.
So, I can't wait. So tickets are on sale. If you want to go to buildingabossummit.com, you can find more on that.
Are there sponsorship spots still open?
Yeah. If people want to sponsor the event, we have some wonderful benefits and you will get national press coverage. We have several, not only local, but national press outlets that are going to be here for the event.
Yeah. So if you're a business owner and you want to get that type of coverage from coast to coast, it's there's still spots available there.
And if people have a product, they can join us at the BA Boss Marketplace, which you can feature your product. You can become a vendor.
Does it BA Boss, like BEA?
Oh no, I messed it up. It's Boss.
It's BA, like
BA Boss Marketplace.
BA Boss. Oh, that's what I thought I heard you say. Actually, you didn't mess it up.
Oh, you messed me up.
I was just thinking other people could maybe hear that differently.
Yeah, you know who we had? So if this sounds familiar, is because this is the same event that we hosted in Tampa, and now we're bringing it to New England. And some of the vendors that we had in Tampa included Kendra Scott and Cheval. So definitely some incredible people joined us in Tampa, and we hope to have them and more here in Connecticut.
Awesome.
Yeah. And why wouldn't you want to be in Connecticut in the fall? It is New England, and this is the place to be.
It's gorgeous here.
It is gorgeous here. So, what else is going on with you, my love?
Well, we have a new client this week.
We do have a new client.
Yeah.
And
another sporty type person. Let's tell people.
Yeah.
So there's a new podcast that we are helping with. We are editing and produce. And this is an established podcast.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing podcast.
Spirit of an Athlete.
Yeah.
So we are excited to be able to bring her into the family of Casa de Confidence Productions. We love helping women get their message out there. And I know that it could be overwhelming to do all your tech. And why not do what you do best and delegate the rest to us? So
Amanda Smith is Spirit of an Athlete. And that's it's good. It's a great podcast.
Yeah.
And their episodes are like 30 minutes. Ish, yeah.
So I highly recommend it. We'll put the information in the show notes in addition to Brian's podcast, because podcasters are coming up with some incredible content. Did you know that the majority of people are getting their content from podcasts now?
No, I wasn't aware.
Yes, I got that from Podfest magazine. They sent an email and they shared some of these stats. So I really wanted to dive a little bit more into that.
You know what I love? I listen to The Rest is History. I know they don't need my help. They're one of the top, micro percent top podcasts in the world. But it's an amazing show. Two guys with British accents talking about history. Yeah. And it's amazing. Really good show. One of those shows I enjoy. I'm a bit of a history person. So how about you? What kind of podcasts do you listen to?
You want to know what kind of podcast I listen to?
Yeah.
Okay. So number one, I listen to, let's see, our clients' podcast.
Of course. I listen to my clients.
Okay. So wait a minute.
I'm just outside of our world.
Outside of our world.
Of our type of podcast. I know which one, the original OG podcast that really got you into listening on a regular basis was the Popcast.
Actually, it was not the Popcast.
Well, that's us together. Listen.
Okay. But the first podcast that really sucked me in is Manager something that it was in 2000.
Sounds like it made an impression.
Well, no, honestly, this podcast was two guys, and I want to research who they were because it was at Manager Essentials, and I had just gotten an iPod, and I happened to find that, and I was like, oh my gosh, and I started to listen, and I used to listen to them on the way to on the way to work from New York City because I had to drive to Jersey. It was amazing because I learned so much about being a manager, about what are the things that you needed to do. So I am so grateful. But one of the biggest podcasts that I listen to right now, obviously, is Smart Passive Income with Pat Flynn.
You can never go wrong with Pat Flynn.
Diary of a CEO. Also, how I built this. There's a theme here, obviously.
Yeah.
Also, the Good Life Project.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to Ear Hustle. That's something that not a lot of people listen to, but Ear Hustle would be a good one for people to check out.
So now you listen to all these podcasts and you get a lot out of them.
Yes.
Well, how about the podcasts that are in our sphere?
You mean are the ones we help to produce?
Yeah.
I listen to all of them.
No, I'm saying mention them because, for the people listening to this podcast, they could get a lot out of those podcasts also.
Yeah, well, we have some incredible people who are putting some incredible content out there. Well, there's the 7 Laws podcast by Constance, The Angelus. There is also Someone Gets Me by Diane Allen. Safe Space Made Simple with Trace Hobbs.
Which I'm actually Trace Hobson.
Sorry.
You shortened his name really quick.
Okay. Binge Breakthrough by Jane Pilger. Conversations with Pearl Chiarenza. Lead Her Ship with Tammy Wilson.
Yeah.
Nickels and Dimes, Natalie Kime. Good Enough with Jamie Volomorel. Did I mess that up?
You totally messed it up.
Cash and
you have a no, you gotta go back.
Jamie Volmoeller.
No.
Oh, say it, Dan.
Volmuller.
What do you think I said?
You said it like Jamie Lawnmower. Sorry, Jamie. It's Jamie Volmuller.
Volmuller. Okay.
Yes.
Lisa Marie Robinson with Cash and Sass. Control Your Career.
I probably said Jamie's name wrong too.
Control Your Career with Juliet Toothaker. And we have some new ones coming up that are going to be Navigating Your Mindset. Self-Care Sheroes is obviously the radio show. Confident You radio show. Wellness Learning Curves is also a radio show. We have 3 upcoming new clients as well. So excited for all this incredible content.
Yay. We're here to support all these wonderful people. Go check out these podcasts. And Julie's going to put a link for every podcast you just mentioned in the show notes.
That's a lot of links.
Yes, it is.
You're not supposed to put that many links.
Well, there's going to be this time, though, because you know why? They deserve it.
They sure deserve it.
So
producer, thank you so much for all the work that you do because you make it happen.
All right. So, it's talking about making it happen. We talked about Brian earlier, and now it is time for Brian and Julie to talk about movies
and life and writing
and stuff.
Oh my goodness,
all right.
Daniel.
So enjoy this amazing interview with Julie DeLucca-Collins and Brian McAleer.
Hi, everybody. I have a special treat for you today. As always, I meet some incredible individuals, and it is such a joy to be able to bring Brian McAleer to the podcast today. He is a writer, coach, and content creator with a long background in supporting youth as a coach, trainer, and mentor. He is all about living life of inspired creativity and helping others do the same. I am thrilled to welcome him to the podcast. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks, Julie. It's great to be on the show.
Yeah, it's great to see you. Well, we know each other before you became a guest on my show. I want to tell people how I got to know you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I host a podcast of my own called My Movie Story, which is all about chatting with everyday people about 3 special films and their connection to those films. And you responded to one of my call for guests last year. And we had a great conversation about your films, and your episode will be the first of season 2, launching on March the 11th. And it's a great episode. And it was it helped me discover 3 movies that I hadn't watched before. I won't spoil what those movies are just yet, but
yay!
I'll let people go and check it out. Yeah.
I love being able to talk about that. So great that we connected, and I'm excited to get to know you and have the listeners also learn more about what you do. I have to say, I loved your bio because I feel so strongly that our biggest purpose is not only finding the things that bring us joy, but also turning around and helping those around us do the same. And you're using your gifts. Did you ever think that you would be doing what you're doing now?
No, honestly. When my journey started when I was quite young, I was about 20 years old, and I was taking an interest in personal development. because I was feeling a bit stuck in life. It was a couple
Mhm.
of years after high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wasn't furthering my education. I was working in a bar basically,
Mhm.
but I was getting ready to go and travel and see the world. And I wanted that to be a, cultural experience and all of that, but also I wanted to really take charge of my life. So
Mhm.
I picked up this book by Anthony Robbins called Unlimited Power, and I devoured the book in like about 2 weeks. And it's a big book
Wow.
for anyone who's read it. They'll
Mhm.
know it's pretty dense, and really that was the start for me. And if I hadn't gone down that path, I'd probably just be bouncing around, floating through life, kind of letting other people tell me what I should be doing and where I should
Mhm.
be going, and not being really fulfilled. And I'd seen some adults around me, not necessarily in my family, just other adults who I was
Mhm.
working with, who were just sort of letting life dictate all their decisions. And I'm like,
Mhm.
nah, I can't do that. There's something
Yeah.
inside me I've got to share with people. So I didn't know where the journey was going to take me, but it's been a journey and lots of
Mhm.
ups and downs. But here I am, and I'm feeling pretty good about where I am in
Yeah.
life. Physically and also just mentally as well. How I live my life day to day. It's yeah, really rewarding.
I love that you knew that you were destined for more. I think that a lot of people don't take the time to really stop and kind
Yeah.
of figure out that, that you have parents go to college, they get a job, and then you go to college, you get a job, and you don't question the status quo. Um,
Mm.
do you feel that now, and, we've been through the pandemic, we've been through so many different changes. Do you think that things are changing now in our world in which people are becoming more aware? Or do you still feel that maybe a lot of people are just kind of stuck in the rut?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I think the
Mhm.
pandemic definitely made us look more closely at
Mhm.
ourselves,
Mhm.
because we were all locked indoors, and
Yeah.
especially here in Melbourne, Australia, where I live, we had some of the strictest and longest lockdowns anywhere in the world,
Yeah.
3 or 4 months at a time over a couple of years. So that really forced all of us to stop and sort of review our life and think about, what am I doing? What does it mean?
Mhm.
What I thought was safe and what I thought was going to look after me maybe isn't going to look after me anymore,
Yeah.
which was the big experience for a lot of people. So yeah, I think it helped us become more introspective and think about our mental health and how we handled pressure,
Mhm.
because we were forced to handle pressure really.
Yeah.
And for myself, I've come through that pretty well. It's and some other personal experiences as well have made me appreciate what I have and the time that I have, and then not take things for granted. But my observation of people around me, clients and students and co-workers, some have really bounced back from it, and others
Mhm.
are still dealing with, I guess, the fallout of COVID.
Yeah.
That nothing is ever going to be the same. Nothing is ever guaranteed,
Mhm.
and the world's kind of on a bit of a knife's edge sometimes. That's sort of the vibe I feel with certain people. So I think it comes down to the individual, whether they want to be like, yep, that happened, let's move forward, or like,
Mhm.
that's what happened is still kind of happening for them internally,
Yeah.
So I see a bit of both of that going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Same here. I think that, it was such a personal experience, even though it was global. I
Hmm.
know that individuals manage in different ways, and really, some
Yep.
individuals really got to go and be introspective, and others did not. Others just kind of
Yep.
were maybe afraid. Do you think
Hmm.
that that was one of the things that people did, that they didn't want to look too deeply in?
Absolutely. I think because it forced people indoors, it took away people's jobs and livelihoods, their social connections, all their freedoms.
Mhm.
Some of my friends and some of my extended family and colleagues found it particularly difficult. And rather than take the time to look at themselves, they were just looking at everything going on externally, like who's to blame? Is this
Yeah.
really happening or not? Is this a hoax? Like looking into at things like conspiracies behind it all. And look,
Mhm.
maybe there's some validity to some of that, but
Right.
my advice was for people, and I shared this in person and I shared it in some of my writing that I did online, is that individually we can't control what's going on in the world right now.
Mhm.
The government and medical organizations are really sort of running the show here and will tell
Hmm.
us what we can do and when. I just try to remind myself and other people that you can only just control yourself in during that time and in times like that. That it is hard to look within, especially if there's some things there that you're not ready to confront. And I think it forced a lot of people to confront themselves. And I believe the majority of people saw that as a positive. Like we saw a lot of people lose their jobs,
Yeah.
but then, they reinvented themselves and got new careers or they went back and studied.
Hmm.
I'm also a part-time teacher, and we saw a huge intake of students who'd lost their jobs and industries
Mm.
coming to us to study.
Wow.
But then, yeah, others were just kind of went into hibernation, I guess, and
Hmm.
just sort of stayed at home and because we had to stay at home, but
Right. Right.
some really cut themselves off. And
Mm.
it's taking time for people to feel confident to go back out there and
Yeah.
start living their lives again, I think. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
getting there, but there's
It's
still
getting
some
there.
some
Absolutely.
way to
And,
go. Yeah.
for me, one of the things that I keep finding it's going to be 4 years, but as we begin to go back to some of the normal things we've done,
Yep.
for instance, I volunteer a lot. The first time that they were having a big event, that it's been our signature event with this volunteer organization. Thousands of people attend. I remember I was excited. I got dressed. I was going to go to this luncheon. And as I was going up the escalator, I remember looking around and thinking, oh, wait a minute, nobody is wearing a mask. And
Yeah.
there was a little bit of excitement, but also a little bit of that apprehension, like,
Yep.
am I safe? And I had to remind myself, I said, Julie, you're thinking that you're not safe. You are. Take a deep breath, enjoy the moment. And we
Hmm.
we definitely have to recalibrate how we do things.
Yep. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And the funny thing was during the peak of the pandemic, I didn't catch COVID. I got it for the first time last year,
Wow.
um, when I attended a funeral and
Mm.
I went to the wake afterwards, and it was a lot of people crammed into this tiny
Mhm.
reception
Wow.
area. And it was also in the colder months of the year, and that's where I got it. So I thought, okay,
Mm.
it's not completely gone yet.
No.
So, when we come into our colder weather, sort of around July and August, you'll see a lot more people here wearing masks. But certainly in my travels around Melbourne, there's still people wearing masks and taking precautions. And I think that for some people will just be a permanent
Mm.
fixture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very few people here are still wearing masks. You may see them more when they're at an airport.
Yep.
And, certainly that I think that we need to really be able to understand that again, it's hasn't
Yep.
gone away. You got it
Mm.
so many months and maybe a couple of years after. I know I was
Yep.
miserable with it, but um
Yep.
hopefully, it's at bay for most of us and
Yeah.
we can move.
Um, yeah. Let's just move forward and put it
Let's
behind
move
us. Yeah.
forward. I'm wondering, the
Mm.
other question I wanted to ask you, and this is something that I'd like to get a glimpse into the guest. If you had to look back, and this is not just from the time that, COVID, but before that, what was the happiest moment that brought you the most joy in your life?
Wow. There's a few. Uh, the first ones that come to mind would be the birth of my children. Being present for
Beautiful.
the birth of my children and watching them enter the world was, just indescribable. My wedding day was another great one. Just an incredible
Beautiful.
day of, just love and celebration. If I
Mm.
think back to my 20s, and in 2006 in particular was one of the best years of my life. I just started my coaching journey. So I was a client of coaching before I became a coach.
Mhm.
And I'm of the belief that whatever I coach clients on, I have to have been coached on myself. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of practice what I preach sort of thing.
Mhm.
And in 2006, I met with a coach and I got outside of my comfort zone and I had all these goals. 2006 was also the year that Melbourne hosted the Commonwealth Games, which is
Mhm.
like the smaller Olympics for
Yeah.
anyone not familiar with that. And I put myself forward to be a volunteer, and I was lucky enough to be a part of the opening and closing ceremonies of
Oh,
the Commonwealth
amazing.
Games. And that was an incredible night. And I was in the MCG, which is our big stadium here,
Mhm.
full of people. It was a beautiful night, and I was a part of that moment, and that really stands out for me as one of the happiest moments
Yeah.
in my life as well that I'd made that a goal and I made it happen. And then that year just went from strength to strength. And yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, those would be the standout ones, I reckon. Yeah.
Those are great. I know that, these life-changing moments of beginning a family, joining the person that you love. And yeah, those are moments that definitely stick out in our minds.
Mm,
And so
yeah.
beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. You're
No
also a
worries.
writer. Did you always
Yes.
want to be a writer?
Yeah, that's really been the constant thing in my life since
Mhm.
I was a kid. Once I was about, you know, somewhere between the ages of 10 or 12, I started taking an interest in writing. And that was from school because I was terrible at maths. But I was drawn to reading stories, movies,
Mhm.
writing my own stories, comic books, all of that sort of stuff. And then as I became a teenager, I started getting into journaling because, I had
Mhm.
a lot on my mind and going through all those changes as you do. And then in my 20s, as I was traveling, I started doing travel writing. I discovered the
Yeah.
writing of Jack Kerouac, who wrote On the Road and all those books, The Beat
Mhm.
Generation. And I saw myself as a bit of a Jack Kerouac, drifting around and writing about what I saw and experienced and wrote about my travels. And then, yeah, and then in my late 20s, after coaching took off, I was one of my coach mentors was saying to me, what are you going to offer that's going to make you stand out?
Mhm.
I thought, well, I like to write. Maybe I could write a book. And I kind of ummed and ahed with it for a while, and I thought to force myself to do this, I'm going to purchase a self-publishing package, which I
Ooh.
did one year. And then I did nothing with it for a couple of years because I was trying to write the perfect book, as most writers do with their first attempt.
Yes, we all want to be perfect.
That's right. It's going to be a bestseller and all this stuff. And I stopped and started and stopped and started. And then I went around to one of my other mentors' homes who'd written 4 or 5 books. And I was telling him my story of how I couldn't write a book. I want to write, I want to write. And he's like, Brian, as great as I think that you are, stop trying for the perfect try. Just write the freaking book, basically. He just went cut through all the bullshit.
Yeah.
Pardon my language.
No, you can say that. We,
Yeah, and I
say a
did,
little
and then
work here and there.
yeah, well, there you go. Sometimes it's just the perfect word, isn't it? And
Absolutely.
then after that shift, I wrote my first book in a year.
Wow.
And I don't know how I did it in a year, but I just knuckled down and yeah,
Mhm.
and I've been writing really consistently ever since. And I don't consider myself a specific type of writer. Like I don't say
Mhm.
I'm a blogger or I'm a
Right.
novelist or I'm an article writer or an author. I'm just a writer.
You're a
And
writer. Yeah.
I'm just all about communicating my thoughts and my ideas and my view on the world and the human
Mhm.
experience through words and through
Yeah.
stories and connecting with other stories. So writing movie
Mhm.
reviews as
Yeah.
well, hosting a movie podcast.
Yes.
And yeah, and I have a long list of book ideas on the drawing board, and I'm
Amazing.
working on some of those now. So it's really central to my life. It's how I live my life, and I couldn't imagine not writing. It just when
Yeah.
I'm not writing, I'm miserable. So I have to write at least every second day
That's
just to
nice.
keep that balance. Yeah.
Now, do you, and this is a very important question because I know that there's some aspiring writers that are listening to us.
Yep.
Do you type in the computer to write or are you writing longhand?
It depends on what I'm writing. So
Mhm.
if something short like a blog entry or an article, I tend to just type straight away,
Mhm.
and I might write that in an hour or two, depending on the length of it. But something a bit longer, like a book or a short story, I'll start with longhand writing first. So usually I
Okay.
jot ideas down, and I'm very I have my very clear rituals as a writer. So when I'm writing longhand, it has to be black pen and it has to be on yellow
Ooh,
notepad paper. Something about
really?
yellow just connects better with
Yeah.
the brain. Yeah, so I only handwrite on yellow paper, like a pale kind of yellow
Mhm.
color. And then I flesh out the idea. And then as I'm writing at the start, it's kind of a bit slow and stilted, but I'm working on a novel at the moment. And last night I was
Ooh,
handwriting and it was getting faster and faster. I'm like, the idea is getting clearer
mhm.
in my head now. I'm getting
Nice.
excited about this. So that's when I start typing because my pen handwriting can't keep up with my thoughts.
Yeah.
But when I'm typing, it's just away I go, and
Mhm.
then I'll just pour it out.
Yeah.
Then I'll print that off. I'll read it. I'll edit it. I might then
Mhm.
handwrite again to refine it, and then type again to get
Mhm.
sort of the finished product. So it's a little bit back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what
Yeah.
an amazing process. I write a lot. I've written
Yep.
short stories. I have
Ah, cool.
journals that I've kept since I was 12.
Mm,
And
hmm.
I I depending, right, what I'm writing, but I have found that the one place where I put a lot of my ideas and stories is my phone. And
Yes.
it's crazy because
Yeah.
I need to organize them. I'm thinking, I know I wrote about, and I'm working on my second book, but also
Cool.
I was going for a walk, and this is something I wanted to do, but it's been sort of in the back burner. And I was going for a walk. I've been reading a book that is called the Be Your Future Self Now by Dan
Yep.
Sullivan. And
Okay.
as I was reading it, I thought, this would be a great children's story. And the next thing you know, I'm like typing it in my phone, and I
Yes.
fleshed it all out,
Yep.
had all my chapters, and I sent it to my friend who's a children's book writer and has an editor. And I said,
Mm.
tell me what you think. And I was so excited. I got to meet with him yesterday and he forgot to look at it. I'm like, what? I can't believe you. Here's my genius book that is coming out.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool.
Yeah. I think you make a great point there that when inspiration strikes,
Mhm.
you've got to capture it
Yeah.
because I've back when I was trying to be a perfectionist before I wrote my first book, I was like, that's a good idea. But then I'd instantly question and be like, hang on, what's that like? Who's gonna like it? Right? All that doubt
Yeah.
kicks in. I got past that by just writing an idea down because
Mhm.
everything starts with an idea.
Yeah.
And I used to carry around a little notepad with me before smartphones.
Mhm.
Now with a smartphone, I either type it in or if I need to say it, I'll say it and record it on the
Uh-huh.
phone and then listen to it and transcribe it later. And then I came across an amazing website called Trello, which I'm sure
Oh, I
some of
love
your
Trello.
listeners
Yes.
have heard of. And I now use that to capture ideas. I'm like, that would be a
Mm.
cool book. That would be a cool article. That could be a TV show, just
Oh, I
whatever.
haven't done that. Oh.
Yeah, and I capture all the ideas, and then occasionally I'll go back to them, and then if I'm driving along, or I'm in the shower, or I'm cooking,
Mhm.
or walking the dog, or whatever, when those ideas just come out of nowhere, I'm like, oh, that could go into that story, and then I'll
Mhm.
quickly write it down, and then I'll add it to the Trello board, and basically I'm just it's like a warehouse of my ideas, and then
Oh.
some of those ideas go years and years back. Like I've
Mhm.
that's the thing with an idea. If it stays with you, then it's worth
Yeah.
exploring. Like some of the novels I'd like to write were ideas I had as a teenager, and
Mhm.
they're still with me now because obviously when you're younger, that's when your imagination is at its strongest. I don't get as many great ideas now, like as in original concepts, but
Mhm.
being an adult now who's got a family and I've held jobs and I run a business, I'm now in the position where I can take those ideas and break them down and make them grounded and make them realistic.
Yeah.
Because when you're really young, you have these really high in the sky ideas,
Oh, yes, for
and
sure.
and then you're like, and then the first thing an adult says to you is like, okay, how's that going to work? And how are you going to make that a story? So my brain now thinks in that way, whereas I don't always get the raw, pure imagination as much, but I know how to take an idea and pull it apart and make something out of it. So I think
Mm.
while you're young, capture those ideas. I still get ideas now,
Yeah.
but I have to be in a place of where I'm not interrupted and the inspiration is just coming through. So like a walk on
Mhm.
the beach or even just driving along in my car, listening to my favorite music or reading a book, and I'll always make sure I've got a pen and notepad around or my phone and I'll
Yeah, me
capture those
too.
ideas
Now,
because you never know what that idea might become. Yeah.
I'm curious, what kind of music do you listen to when you're in the car? And,
Yeah.
what inspires you when you're listening to music?
I have a pretty wide taste in music. So
Mhm.
when I'm writing, I only listen to instrumental music. If I
Ah,
listen to
good, good, good.
words, if I listen to songs with lyrics, it messes me up, and then
Me too.
I'll actually start typing the lyrics. I'm like, oh, hang on, no, that's not what I was writing.
Yes.
Um, in the car, it's a combination of audiobooks, podcasts, depending on how long my drive is. But yeah, I listen to a lot of like instrumental music,
Mhm.
sort of cinematic music, movie soundtracks,
You're a
classical.
movie buff.
That's right. That's probably my first go-to type of music is the more
Mhm.
thematic, cinematic kind of stuff. That the rousing score or I have certain
Mm.
composers who I really like. But yeah, I also like a lot of solo artists. I don't really
Mhm.
listen to pop music much, but
Yeah.
I do like songs and singers that are like storytellers because I'm all
Mhm.
about story.
Yeah.
Where yeah, so that's kind of my go-to, but a very wide taste in music. Yeah,
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 me too. I
yeah.
actually, you'd appreciate this. I've been putting on songs, especially when I'm doing like creating content for the business or really kind of hashing out. I'm about to launch something new and it's been kind of brewing in my brain and I've sort of mapped it out in my brain, took some notes in my phone, and then I'm like, no, I need to kind of flesh it out. So I've been using the Harry Potter soundtrack
Mm,
for every
awesome.
time I'm sitting around and I
Yep.
I I I love the soundtracks from music. They're
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah,
absolutely.
we
Yeah.
should do an episode just on soundtracks.
Uh, yeah, it was funny you mentioned that. I'm thinking of doing an episode for my podcast about, musical movies or movie scores and all of that. So yeah, yeah.
Ah, see?
Because when you think of movie scores like Harry Potter, the music itself is it's telling the story and it's capturing the themes and the imagination and the score to Harry Potter, it's very like magical and
Mm,
mysterious and
yeah.
whimsical because it's all about wizards and magic
Yep.
and all of that stuff. And I once did this writing exercise where probably out of all the Harry Potter films, my favorite score is from the film Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince.
Hmm.
There's some it's got the main Harry Potter theme, but then it's also got some more specific pieces of music. Like
Mm.
there's a track on that soundtrack called Ginny, Ginny
Ooh.
being
Yep.
Ron's sister who
Ron's
Harry
sister, right?
ends up with. And it's the scene where they're in that room with all the artifacts and they kiss.
Uh-huh.
And that particular music really captures that, that youth, that romance, that
Ooh, I
innocence.
have to go back and
Um,
listen to that.
yeah, it's a beautiful soundtrack. And I used to do this quite a lot. I would sit down and put a movie soundtrack on and I would write whatever came to mind while listening to a track. And then
Mhm.
once that track stopped, I would stop writing. And then the next one would kick in and be like, oh, here's a more like suspenseful action
Mhm.
piece of music. And then I would write to that. So I kind of channel my writing via the music. And then a
Mhm.
lot of the times it's just gibberish, but sometimes from that I can extract an idea for a story because the
Mhm.
music sort of resonates with us and captures all those like thoughts and feelings
Yeah.
and stuff. I
There's
use that to help
sometimes,
me write.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's sometimes that music and songs are really able to capture emotions. And even when we're trying to say something, I tell my husband, I said, um, this song tells you how I feel today.
Yep.
Because sometimes
There's always a song
you
for
know,
every mood and every feeling, isn't there?
yes, there is a
Yeah.
song. I call it the soundtrack of my life. So I have a playlist. And if anybody wants a copy of it, you can have it. I have
Yeah.
a soundtrack of my life, and every time there's a song that becomes meaningful or it
Mhm.
really resonates with me, it goes in there. And like you, I
Yep.
also have wide array of taste in music. So don't be
Mm.
surprised if we go all the genres in that playlist.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very much the same. Like I don't I might like one or two songs from a certain artist, but I
Mhm.
won't go and listen to all their songs or buy all their albums. But just I connected with that particular song,
Yeah.
and then I won't say, "Oh, I hate that singer." Like for example, Taylor Swift, she's actually in Melbourne this weekend
Oh,
doing her
she is.
three massive
Ooh.
concerts starting tonight. A couple of her songs I quite enjoy, but
Hmm.
I won't go to the concert. My daughter and wife wanted to go, but we couldn't get tickets, unfortunately,
Oh,
because it just sold
unfortunately.
out in 3 seconds. But
Yes.
yeah, like a couple of her songs, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, I get what she's saying there. But I won't necessarily go and listen to the whole album
Yeah.
or her whole catalog. But I've got nothing against her music.
Hmm.
So I think
Yeah.
anyone who can create music is I really admire because it's just another form of creativity and writing and storytelling,
Yeah.
and it
And
takes a
she's a
certain talent to
great
do it.
writer storyteller. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really I think that she's definitely captures the essence of relationships and feelings as you're going through.
Yeah.
But that's just me, of course.
Yeah, definitely. She definitely captures that. Yeah, and she
Yeah.
started when she was like 19 and she's now
Oh,
34,
she was
35.
16, I think. She more
Yeah.
younger than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's
Yeah.
actually an artist that someone introduced me to, and I was going to look up his name because his Noah Khan. Have you heard of him?
No.
Yeah. So he is a folksy storyteller type music person. And I heard a couple of his songs and I thought, oh, we're young man, but yeah, I highly recommend him. So
Okay,
I'll
cool.
share that
I'll check
with
him out.
people.
Yeah, I do like
Definitely.
folk music. Yeah. Yeah.
hmm So
Cool.
fun. Now I know I have friends that are in Australia and I can't wait to visit because I know I have people everywhere now. Um,
Yep,
Australians travel a lot.
we
You
do. Yeah.
you take it seriously.
Yep.
Um, I know how important travel is, at least to me, and I believe that there's so much wealth that you can gain from traveling. Where have you
Mhm.
traveled, and why would you recommend to people
Yeah.
to get up and go?
Yeah. Well, I was exposed to travel in the world from a very young age. So I'm a first generation Australian. My parents are Scottish. So they
Okay.
came here in the early 70s, and my sisters and I were all born here in Australia. When I was about 5, going on 6, my parents wanted to move back to Scotland. So we sold
Okay.
everything they had and off we went back to Scotland. Didn't long term, it didn't quite work out, but we were there for 6 months.
Wow.
I went to school there. I was quite popular being the Aussie kid in a school full of
Yep.
Scottish kids. They were all asking me about our big soap opera here called Neighbours, because they
Okay.
love it over there, and asking me what happens. I'm like, I don't know. I was like 6, I didn't watch it, but they all did. And then we came back from Scotland, and we would usually host guests from overseas at our house, who were
Mhm.
friends of my parents. And yeah, I always wanted to go back to the UK, Scotland, England, and Ireland, and I had my sights set on America as well. So after high school, I was like, "Yep, I'm going to travel." So the big destination for me to start off with was to go to America. And my way in there was through something called Camp America,
Okay. Yep. I've
which is
heard
where
of
they
it.
get international staff to work on your summer camps.
Yeah.
And I ended up on a camp in Pennsylvania called
Mhm.
Summit Camp for kids with special needs.
Mhm.
And I was at the beginning, I'm like, what am I doing here? Why did you hire me? I don't know what I'm doing. But they saw something in me, and that was
Mhm.
a life-changing experience. And
Mhm.
after camp, I then traveled the States, went to New York, Washington,
Yep.
Boston, Vegas, LA, and I went back and did camp 4 more times over about a 6-year period. So
Wow.
traveled America pretty extensively.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, just caught the bug. And
Yeah.
um, out of all the trips, I think the big traveling experience for me that was really defining was when I went to America for the first time. So I was
Mhm.
20. I had my 21st in America. That was a lot of fun.
Ooh,
Uh,
fun.
Not a PG story though, so I won't go into
Okay,
details
we won't
about it
go into
tonight.
it.
I got initiated. Let's just say that. Quite humiliating.
You
But
can put it in your memoir.
sure, yes,
Okay,
definitely, we'll be in there. Yes,
perfect.
and yeah, look, that trip was all about getting to the States for the first time, going back to Scotland again, where I'd grown up as a kid, to visit my uncles and aunts and cousins. So most of my cousins are over there and in England. And traveling, on my own, staying with family, working in pubs, sleeping in hostels. I kind of just, thought I'm going to just give myself a year here and see the
Mhm.
world and see where I land and connect with the people in the place. And I started writing about that. I called it my year away because I was gone for
Ooh,
exactly 1 year, and it was incredibly life changing, and a lot of experiences and a lot of stories came out of that. And it really, was a really foundational year in my young adulthood that whatever's going to happen to me in life, I couldn't see it all just happening in one town or one city or one country.
mhm.
This was 2004, so we were starting to become more of a global
Yeah.
society. And then obviously social media and the internet accelerated that even more. But yeah, I was like, I've got to see the world. I've got to find where I fit in. I want to connect with people from other countries. So
Mhm.
mostly because I'm just really curious,
Yeah.
and what connects us all and what makes us different,
Mhm.
and I really learned that from traveling. So and obviously to go and see all these cool sites, like seeing New York for the first time was like
Yeah.
very iconic. It's like, wow, I've seen this in so many movies and I feel like I've been here before. And then
Hmm.
on the third and fourth trip, I got to see the real New York and meet some of the
Good.
local people, and I'd done all the touristy stuff. So it was more about what's this country and the city all about. So
Hmm.
that became the focus of my travel after that. So I kind of started off as a tourist, but then I became a traveler. And it's just
Very
like I want to go to
nice.
the small towns. I want to stay with people who live here and see what they do and where they hang out. So not so much the
Yep.
touristy stuff, but more like what is this country and its people really about? That's how I like to travel. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I like to travel too. I like to go off the beaten path
Mm,
and definitely hang with the locals and go
yeah.
where they like to eat. I think that there's so much wealth of information about the culture, the people by just seeing how they live every day. Because yes, we are
Yeah.
all the same, but then we have these nuances that make us who we are. So
Yeah.
it's
It's
such a good
fascinating, isn't it?
experience.
It
It is
really is. Yeah.
fascinating. I know.
Yeah. Yeah. And have you been to
I
Australia yet?
No, it's on my list. So I have to tell you a story. My first husband and I traveled a lot. We That was one of the things that really kind of bonded us together when we met, that we really loved to travel. He has been to Australia several times. We were going to travel. We were going to a family gathering. I I want to say maybe it was in Texas. We were going to Texas. And at the last minute, we got a call from the person that was going to watch our dogs, and they said that they weren't going to be able to stay with the dogs, and we were supposed to be going
Mm.
to this family reunion.
Oh
um
no.
so we have a friend that lives in Florida, and she happened to call that day, and she said, hey, when I was in Australia, because her and her husband would travel to Australia for the Australian Open every
Oh
year
yeah.
without fail.
Oh wow.
And
Yeah.
when they were in Australia for the Open, they met Sonny and Pete. And Sonny and Pete took them everywhere. They went to wine country, and Sonny and Pete happened to come to Florida to visit our friend. And they
Yep.
were about to fly to New York and wanted to know if they could stay with us.
Oh
And
cool.
we said, sure, but we're not going to be home. They just need to watch the dogs. And
Worked out
then,
really well then.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we
Perfect.
left them. Oh, this is so funny. People are going to be scandalized. We left them a key to the apartment. This is New York City, but I feel New York City is very safe and also very friendly. We had a pub right across the street from our house. We left them the key with the bartender. And then when we got home, we got to hang out with Sonny and Pete. And to this day, I'm friends with Sonny and Pete, and
Awesome.
they live right across the street from Bondi Beach. And every year they're
Okay.
like, "When are you coming?"
Oh yeah, yeah. You've
So
got to get over here.
I
Yeah,
gotta
you'll
get
you'll
over
love it.
there.
You'll love it.
Well, I
Yep.
applied to TEDx originally in Australia because I
Right.
thought if I can make the TEDx in Australia, I'll just make it a whole
There you
trip
go.
and stay there for at least a month, 6 weeks. Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
So.
Yeah. Well, you've got a friend here in Melbourne, and
Well,
I'll be happy
thank
to
you.
show you the
Oh,
sights. And I live
amazing.
pretty close to our winery area in the Yarra Valley,
Cool.
so we can do a winery tour, and yeah, you'll
Perfect.
have a great time.
Well, Dan and I are trying to launch our second podcast. It will be just us, no interviews. Well, maybe some guests, but no, not necessarily interviews. We're calling it "What Are You Drinking?" And it's about going to coffee shops, breweries, um, wineries, and talking about the difference and just hanging out.
Yep. Ah, cool, cool. That would be interesting. Yeah.
So stay
Yeah.
tuned for that.
All
Um,
right.
Brian, you are a coach, and I know, sorry, we're getting ready to kind of say goodbye. You've been incredibly gracious, but you are a coach. And again, we talked about that in the very beginning.
Yep.
What do you want your clients to gain from you, or what can they expect? And I
Yep.
know you're trying to create that ripple effect and change lives.
Mm,
I know you
yeah.
are doing it. Tell me, what is that like?
Yeah. Coaching is really powerful. Having been a client myself, it made a huge difference to my life. Really helped me come out of my shell. It helped me be brave enough to go after the things that I wanted. And it's a set of tools, really.
Hmm.
Coaching is not some magic solution for all of life's
Hmm.
problems, but
Yeah.
it can help. It can help. And it's a bunch of tools and it's methods and it's a way of thinking where once you're coached, once you've been a coaching client, you can then start to coach yourself. And you doesn't mean you necessarily will go on to be a coach as well, but you'll learn things you can use in your day-to-day life,
Yeah.
which I started to do. And then around the same time as being a coaching client, I was studying to be a youth worker. And then I got a
Mm.
job as a youth worker, and I was really enjoying that. But I found some challenges around working with those particular young clients around communication, and they'd come from pretty rough backgrounds,
Yeah.
some trauma, some grief. Some of
Mhm.
them had been in and out of custody,
Wow.
homelessness, drugs and alcohol, you name it.
Mhm.
Sometimes just a few of those issues, sometimes all of the above. And I had to connect with them. I had to get them to, build their confidence and self-esteem, their self-worth, and think about how they wanted to live their life, that they weren't defined by what had happened to them. And coaching is a lot about that as well. So I started using my coaching techniques, mostly communication, questioning,
Mhm.
goal setting, paraphrasing, all this stuff with my youth work clients, and it worked really well. And then that helped me approach my youth work job. And then I kind of molded the two together and like, well,
Mhm.
maybe I could coach youth as a
Yeah.
as a profession. And that's kind of how I launched my business as a youth empowerment coach. I
Amazing.
started coaching teens and then I moved up to young adults, then coached parents of teens.
Mhm.
And I've gone through all of that. Now I've sort of shifted gears in the past couple of years as
Mhm.
I've changed and
Yeah.
my focus has changed. That means my coaching changes.
Mhm.
So now I'm all about working with individuals who want to create. So whether they're an artist or an
Mm.
entrepreneur, writers, innovators who have great ideas and have a vision, but they just don't know where to start. Because I
Mm.
was like that as well,
Yeah.
and I've been through all of that. I've been through trying to make the perfect try, the self-doubt, the stops and starts, the
Yeah.
comparing myself to everyone else and
Mhm.
being like, I'll never be as great as them and all this stuff. It's not about being the next Stephen King or the next Taylor Swift. It's
Yeah.
about being you. The world needs
Mhm.
you to step up and shine, right? Because what you have to offer, no one else can offer.
Yeah.
There's something about you and how you do that that is unique, right? So that's what I'm all
Mhm.
about. It's like, let's focus in on that and be inspired by your life, like
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that life's all of a sudden going to be really easy and breezy all the time, but it does make it more manageable because you're more focused on, well, what do I want to do? How am I going to do that? And it helps you become more proactive and take action on a consistent basis. That's what coaching did for me and
Mhm.
continues to do for me and how I like to coach my clients. It's your life. No one's going to hand you your success on a silver platter. You've got to go out there and make it happen. There's people to help you with along the way, but you've also got to be able to help yourself and be
Yeah.
your own coach. So that's what coaching does, and it's very powerful. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I could not agree with you more. As you're speaking and you're describing a coach, you're going to laugh because you'd appreciate this. I'm picturing Obi-Wan Kenobi being the guide, asking the
Yeah.
questions.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Well, I
exactly
guess he's in a
kind
way,
of what we
he's
are.
kind of
Yeah.
like a coach or a
Yeah,
mentor. Yeah.
that's right. And
Yep.
then Luke had
Absolutely.
to ask the questions himself and coach himself, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's pretty much
Yeah.
the journey. Yeah.
The hero's journey. Yep.
That's right. We all have
Yep.
it. And I'm so glad that you are helping others discover their own hero's journey. I want to leave the listeners with just some words to inspire from you. Is that okay?
Sure. Far away.
Okay. To
Yeah.
make a new discovery, first build your curiosity, then begin your exploration and rely on your navigation to seek what it is you find and enrich your inquisitivity. So, thank you for sharing that. Those are your words. You're an excellent writer and
Thank you.
inspirational at that. I can't wait to see what amazing things you continue to do when you get, all the awards for your books. I want a copy, and I
Of
also would
course.
like to have the signed copies, of course. So,
Yep.
thank you
No
for all you
worries.
do. And thank you for, again,
Yeah.
being the person that is there to help others in this journey. I hope that, we continue to cross paths. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, Julie. Thank you very much for all your kind words and the chance to talk to you and your guests. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your goodness, your words. So much fun. I'm glad we had this conversation. And Brian, I
Yeah.
have one last thing to say. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. And thanks for being here.
Thank you, Julie. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Casa de Confidence. We thank you for listening, and if you want more, go to casadeconfidencepod.com. Check Julie out on her socials as Julie DeLucca-Collins. And you can also check out her website at goconfidentlycoaching.com. Have a great week, and don't forget, go confidently in the direction of your dreams.
Hi, everybody. I know that sometimes we get very lonely in this entrepreneur journey, and I want to invite you to join us into our limited time only Purposeful You Mastermind. For many of us entrepreneurs, we believe that we can do it all, but the reality is that doing it alone only creates a lot of overwhelm. So join us at the Purposeful You Mastermind. You can find out more information by going to bit.ly/Julie's Mastermind. This is going to be the place where you are able to then unlock your full potential and achieve long-term success for your business, push you behind your current limits, expand your connections, discover new ideas, and implement them with confidence. You're going to get the support in all aspects and transforming you to the six-figure business you've been looking for. Pause and get off the hamster wheel if you've been spinning around. This is a time where you can get that support from like-minded entrepreneurs that are here to join you in your journey. Together, we can challenge the assumptions and land the speaking engagements and opportunities we want to grow our business and make an impact in the lives of people. See you then. Remember, you can find the mastermind at bit.ly, Julie's Mastermind.